bungalow of St Kilda. Correct answer.
Sit next to them on like the cliff.
Brilliant.
I think it's to be a bit soggy on Thursday. Might not be sitting next to
maybe
them.
not.
We're not
Take a
going
little
out
walk
tomorrow.
around.
No, maybe we're not going out tomorrow.
Way of putting it, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this is so cool. Oh, sorry.
Stac Lee.
Yeah, the other one is Stac and Armin. And the big one is Boreray.
Boreray.
Stac, I'm Kim.
I'm Del.
We are Going the Whole Hog, and you've just been watching our St Kilda film, which is the first in a 4-part series of films from our trip to the Outer Hebrides in June. We're not sure exactly when the rest of the films will be out, sometime over the next few weeks. If you're interested in seeing them, make sure that you do subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell so that you're notified whenever the new films are released.
And as usual with all of our films, we always have an accompanying travel guide over on the blog. So we'll have them for the future films to come, and we definitely have one for this St Kilda film as well. So if you're planning a trip yourself, you can find out more about how to get there and how to visit, and a little bit more about the history and the culture of the island too.
Everything you need to know to plan your own trip, but we will tell you a little bit more about our own experience visiting St Kilda and a little bit about the history and why St Kilda is such a special place.
St Kilda is a small archipelago about 40 miles west of North Uist. It is the outermost islands of the Outer Hebrides. The group is made up of 4 islands and numerous sea stacks, 2 very prominent ones, and St Kilda holds dual UNESCO World Heritage status, inscribed for both cultural and natural criteria. St Kilda has a very dramatic landscape. It was formed by an ancient volcano, and it is very, very visually spectacular. It also supports the Northeast Atlantic's largest seabird colony, with tens of thousands of gannets, plus fulmars, puffins, guillemots, shags, and many, many more.
St Kilda's cultural history is also very interesting. It's been inhabited since the Bronze Age, and St Kildans have always worked together as a community in order to ensure their survival on these isolated, remote, harsh living environment. So they would keep cattle and sheep for food and for wool, they would farm the land, and most importantly they would harvest the seabirds that nest in the cliffs and the stacks around St Kilda. So St Kildan men were highly skilled cragsmen. They would tie ropes around themselves, lower themselves down these sheer cliffs in order to hunt the seabirds and to collect eggs. They would go on fowling expeditions in little rowboats 5 miles across to Boreray, into the sea stacks, Stac and Armin and Stac Lee. They would stay out there for a couple of weeks at a time, just living in little stone shelters on the sea stacks and collecting the gannets during the gannet breeding season. For feathers, for food, for oil, they would use it to sustain themselves over winter and also use it to pay the rent for the land that they were working.
It had always been a self-sufficient community, but throughout the 1800s and early 1900s, outside influences such as tourism and the First World War led to significant changes, and by 1930 the St Kildans way of life was simply no longer sustainable.
There was only about 36 residents left and just a handful of able-bodied men, which meant there wasn't enough people to go out and harvest the seabirds, to manage the boats, to manage the land, and they just couldn't continue living their isolated life on St Kilda. So they petitioned the government to be officially evacuated to the mainland and left in 1930.
In the 1950s, the National Trust for Scotland took ownership of St Kilda, with part of the island being leased to the Ministry of Defence for a radar station.
And to this day, the Ministry of Defence still maintains a year-round presence on the island, with NTS staff and researchers and work party volunteers living on the island between April and September, which coincides with the main tourist season. The only way to get to St Kilda is by boat, and there are 4 companies that run regular scheduled day trips to St Kilda during the tourist season, which is about mid to late May until late September, sometimes into early October. So these trips go from the Isle of Skye and from Harris and from Barra, with a pickup on Eriskay, which is connected by causeway to Uist and Benbecula. So wherever you are in the Western Isles, you can get out to St Kilda from one of those spots. And if you're on mainland Scotland, driving over the bridge to Skye and leaving from there is a good idea. There's also a few companies that run multi-day sailing trips to St Kilda or around the Hebridean Islands, sometimes on, say, a tall ship or a kayaking focused trip. And there's also a few cruise companies who would visit there, and also Orkney and Iceland, Norway, various other itineraries.
A trip to St Kilda is very popular, so as you might imagine, booking in advance is highly recommended. And this is especially true during the peak season, which is July and August. Just be aware it's not cheap. Prices are between £205 and £280 per person.
£285.
Oh, sorry,
actually.
£285.
And, you know, it might go up next year, who knows. We did this trip in June, and we travelled with Hebridean Sea Tours, who are based out of Barra, but they did a pickup at Eriskay for us. It was about 7 in the morning that we left, and it is a full day trip to get out to St Kilda and back. It was about 3 hours journey time each direction for us to get from the Outer Hebrides, well, from Eriskay out to St Kilda, and same on the way back. The shortest time is usually about 2.5 hours, but it can be up to 4 hours if you're going from Skye, which is that bit further away. So it's a full commitment, and it is known to be a very rough journey going out there. It wasn't too bad when we made the trip, but the trips are often cancelled by the companies, and you book on a sort of 2-day booking window usually, so that if your trip doesn't go the first day, you have the opportunity to go the second day if the weather is better then. But unfortunately, a lot of people do have their trips cancelled, and it's just the way it goes. It's rough weather out there in the North Atlantic, and there's not much you can do about it.
We recommend that you wear good walking shoes for your trip to St Kilda, and you should wear some outdoor clothing with waterproof gear as well, and be prepared for all weather eventualities. And take any food and drink that you need with you, because there's nothing to buy on the island.
Yeah, there is a water tap, there are some toilets, but there's nowhere to buy foods or any other drinks or anything like that. So take everything that you need: binoculars, camera, power bank for charging your phone, that kind of thing, spare batteries. You're probably going to take a lot of photos, so make sure you pack that.
You will get a cup of tea or coffee and a chocolate biscuit on the boat, but that's about it.
Yeah, so we can obviously only speak to our own experience with Hebridean sea tours, but as far as I'm aware, all of the other companies running day trips to St Kilda are pretty similar in the format of it. So you'll basically anchor in Village Bay and then transfer to a little Zodiac or a dinghy to get you into the landing jetty. When you arrive on the island, you're welcomed by the warden. The National Trust for Scotland warden will give you a speech about 15 minutes or so, just telling you all about where you can and can't go on the island, the facilities, and a little bit about how to behave around the birds, and just everything that you need to know to kind of have a safe and enjoyable trip. And then you're just left to your own devices. You're free to walk around the island, go wherever you like. Within reason, you're not allowed to go into the military buildings or into some of the private houses. And you usually have about 4.5 hours, sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes a little bit less, just depends on your own company and the weather on the day, how long the boat journey is taking to get there. But you've got a good amount of time to just get out and explore.
First we went around the village, popped into the museum, which is really interesting, lots of good information boards about the history and culture of St Kilda. So we spent a little bit of time in there.
The museum is one of the houses that one of the St Kildans lived in. Some of the houses are just in ruins, it's just the walls left, but a few of them have been kind of restored by the work parties that have been visiting every year since the 50s. And the rest of them are all used as accommodation for the researchers and the work party volunteers. But yeah, house number 3 is the museum, and you're welcome to go in there and have a little look around. Yeah,
so we went in there, we enjoyed watching the sheep roaming around, and then we headed up towards the gap. So it was a bit of a walk up past the old sheep enclosures, and then you get to the gap, you get fantastic views out towards Boreray, get to watch all the fulmars swooping in and out of their nests, and it's just a good place to stop and have a picnic, weather permitting, of course.
We spent quite a lot of time up there. Yeah, the views are absolutely amazing, and you can see back down over the village, over Village Bay, out to the cliffs, and yeah, it's a really amazing spot. It's quite a steep climb up, there's no path to follow, but I mean, it's straightforward enough. It should take you about an hour to an hour and a half to get up there and back down to the village, including some time hanging out at the top.
Yeah, another option you can have is if you go up to the gap, you can then continue up to Connacher, which is it the highest point on Hirta?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the highest point on Hirta, and then you can get views back down towards Village Bay and of course out to Boreray and the Stacs.
You just get a different perspective.
Yeah, and then you can continue round from there and back down to the village. Another option is to go to Ruval and look out across towards Dun, and the way that you've basically come to the island. We
didn't end up doing any of that just because we spent so much time up at the gap enjoying the views and making this film for you. Obviously it takes a little bit longer than if we were just doing our own thing and not filming. But yeah, we had really great weather. We were very, very lucky. The sheep, you mentioned the sheep, but you didn't say anything else about them. So these sheep are very interesting. They're totally different to any sheep that you find on the mainland. They're called soy sheep. They used to be on Soy, which is an island just behind Hirta, which is the main island that you land on. A couple of years after the evacuation, they moved some of the sheep over to Hirta, and they just roam around wild. They are tagged because there's a research project that's been going on for about 30 years or something. And they kind of do a study on them, but they're just left to their own devices, and they have these hair coats which just naturally molt. They don't need to be sheared or anything like domesticated sheep do. And yeah, they're extremely cute. The good thing about being there in June was there was lots of like little lambs.
Well, the lambs are quite cute.
Yeah, the older ones.
As all lambs tend to be.
The older ones were all like molting and looking a bit minging, but a bit bedraggled. But yeah, they're very, very interesting. And there's actually another unique sort of primitive breed of sheep that you'll see on Boreray as well, which is where you visit after you've spent your time on the mainland on Hirta. So you go back to the jetty, get your dinghy back to your boat. As Del said, you'll get a wee cup of tea, a wee coffee, cake and a biscuit or something like that. And then you'll spend about an hour on the boat going around the sea stacks and going around Boreray. We went around the back of Hirta so that we could see the big cliffs of Connacher. So where we'd been sat at the gap having our picnic looking down, we were then at the bottom looking up, which was really amazing to get like a different perspective. Went further around the back and sort of sailed in between a stack and the cliffs and through this little gap. And then it's about 5 miles or I don't know 15 minutes or something on the boat to get out to Boreray, which for me I think was the real highlight of the entire trip. That's kind of the iconic scenery of St Kilda with these big peaks, gannets just flying absolutely everywhere all around you overhead. The numbers I'm not quite sure of. I think at some point there was about 60,000 pairs, so 120,000 plus gannets who are just like hanging out on the sea stacks there, and it's really, really amazing. They fly all over you. They are diving down into the water, which is the way that they go fishing. There's guillemots there as well, and yeah, it's a really, really special place and a spectacular view that you get from the boat when you're sort of rocking around looking there.
Yeah, I mean obviously the birds in the air, the birds in the water, the birds on the stacks themselves, just lining every crack and crevice. It's an impressive sight.
The Boreray sheep as well, if you look carefully you'll see them just sort of sitting in impossible positions on like the side of the island, and again they just roam wild there. And
you may spot one of the small stone bothies that the St Kildans used when they spent time on the stacks.
They were snacking on birds on the stacks, yeah. So yeah, if you look carefully you might spot that. So yeah, a very impressive way to end the trip. And then once you've sort of circled around Boreray and seen the stacks and whatnot, the boat will head back to wherever you started. Our return journey was a little bit less rough than on the way out, and we got back to Eriskay about 7:30 at night, and we found a really nice little wild camp spot by the causeway. It was such a beautiful sunset, all the oyster catchers just circling around us, and yeah, the perfect way to end a very, very wonderful day.
And if you are planning your own trip to St Kilda, don't forget to check out our detailed written guide. It gives you lots more information about the islands themselves, plus all the details that you need to plan your own trip.
You can find that guide on goingthewholehog.com. It is linked in the description down below. If you click the info button up here, you'll also find a link to it. And yeah, it's got everything that you need to know to sort out your own trip. And hopefully it's a bit of an interesting read as well. If you've enjoyed this video, please do give us a like, drop us a comment down below. I'm also very curious to know as to whether you found this video because you're already planning a trip to St Kilda and you were doing some research, or if you just happened to watch our videos anyway and this is maybe the first time you've heard of St Kilda. So yeah, let me know in the comments below. I'm very intrigued to know.
Yeah, if you're still watching now, which you are because we're talking to you, thanks very much, we really appreciate it. And as Kim says, if you did enjoy it, hit that like button and leave a comment if you've got time. It really does help us out a lot.
Also, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell for more videos from the Outer Hebrides, from Scotland and from all over the world. Hiking trips, outdoor things, all of that sort of stuff. Special thank you to our patrons, all 7 of you I think it is. You know who you are. Thank you very much. And if you do like what we do and you'd like to support us continuing to create these films and the useful guides that go along with them, please do go and check out our Patreon page. You can read a little bit more about us, about the things that we do, and also see what it is that we offer in exchange for your very valued pledges. So yeah, it's linked up here as well if you want to go and check that out. Much appreciated. Thank you for watching all the way to the end here, and we'll see you next time in Barra. And Mingulay, oh my goodness, we went on another day trip to another uninhabited island, which in many ways is actually just as special, if not more, as St Kilda. What do you think?
Mingulay is very, very special. Let's just leave it at that.
Okay, you can see more of that in the next video coming up. Who knows when, so hit the notification bell so that you get notified.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye for now. Thank
Cheerio.
you.